What's up, guys? This video is going to be a very interesting approach to your training that I don't want you all to neglect. So it's important that you listen to this and you pay attention, because it's not complicated, but it's very overlooked. When we live inside of this hypertrophy training atmosphere, we put ourselves in an environment where we're constantly stressed, whether it's through tissue damage or oxidative stress from these growth factors and everything like that, metabolic stress. That's all well and good, but you're forgetting that you have this one thing in your body that cannot be overlooked, that makes literally your world go round, and it's your heart. Okay, that is your aerobic capacity. And I can say from personal experience, and it actually is a major factor, that you have to make sure that you're keeping your heart in check and that you have good aerobic capacity. When you go into a hypertrophy training environment, it's more of an anaerobic environment, which isn't bad. It's a good environment for building muscle. But if you're stimulating that pathway for too long, you could be just setting yourself back. And if your goal is to grow muscle, not only are you inhibiting your health long term, but you're inhibiting your potential to grow muscle in the long term too by not getting into an aerobic environment. So I want to give you guys a method that I really love to get away from the hypertrophy training environment. What it does is it helps improve my strength, my cardiovascular performance, my cardiovascular health, my recovery, and also is a good competition with myself, so I don't get bored with my training going into, basically this is a completely different style of training. Now I will preface this by saying this is very challenging in a way that you're not used to. You're going to get out of breath, and when you get out of breath in this, you have to make sure that your form and your intensity stays at a high. So my recommendation for you guys is that you stay at about 60% of what you actually would typically do for your working sets, maybe even lower, because what's going to happen is as your aerobic capacity gets taxed more and more, you're going to recover worse and worse and worse. So the method, it's called a bunch of things, but I like to use the terminology of an incomplete rest method, and there's a lot of versatility to that incomplete rest method, but I will give you the way that I do it. It can be done in straight sets with short breaks. It can be done in supersets with short breaks. It can be done in tri-sets with short breaks. It can be done in almost like a German body comp style in short breaks. This is something that's been coined as, like, you know, some people call it muscle rounds, but I'll call it an incomplete rest method. What I like to do basically is to, from a split standpoint, really simplify my split to big movement patterns and not so much muscle groups, something that I know is going to get a lot of muscles working around several joints, and do an upper body exercise right into a lower body exercise. And in this incomplete rest method, I literally am setting a timer. So if I do two big movements, say like a squat and a press, I'm not calculating my break. I'm going to take break as needed. I'm going to put a weight on the bar that I can cleanly get the first set for whatever prescribed reps. And for me, when I'm taxing aerobic capacity, anywhere from that 8 to 15 range is pretty challenging for me over the course of this circuit, if you will. It's an incomplete rest method. And I'm setting a timer for 20 minutes to start with, for example. And as I go through this phase more and more and more, I may get as high as 30 minutes. So what I'm saying is you would do a press and a squat for 20 minutes straight, taking breaks as needed with whatever load you could do for your rep scheme. So for what I did today, it was 12 reps on that. And what happened set to set to set is that weight just got substantially heavier and heavier and heavier. And the beauty of this is, with this method, you get so much growth factors going high to low that your heart is taxed big time, your aerobic capacity is taxed big time, as well as your liver. So when you get in and you do a metabolic environment or muscle building environment for too long, you create too much muscular damage, okay, you can beat up your liver. This is a really, really good method to use to bring back liver health. And for other dietary reasons I'm not going to get into, but that's why I love this so much. It helps your heart and it helps your liver, two vital things for living. Okay, so you're going to go through that round, that muscle round, if you will, for 20 minutes. And then you're going to go, for instance, into another superset or muscle round for 10 to 15 minutes of smaller movement patterns. So I will do smaller body parts, but still I like to keep them very unstable, like the squat and the presses. So for instance, you could do like a standing dumbbell curl into some form of an ab exercise. And again, the idea is that I'm not trying to stimulate a specific muscle group. I'm just trying to do a bigger movement pattern that gets a lot of growth factors going everywhere, and it taxes my liver, therefore taxing my aerobic system. Okay, now the whole idea is you should be calculating or tracking how many times you get through this muscle round over the course of the allotted time. And what I would do if it were me is you're going to do 3 to 4 weeks of this, so to speak. Okay, and you're going to find that even though the weight on the bar won't change a whole lot, your aerobic capacity is going to get substantially better because the mitochondria is going to get better at recovering, better at making energy, which is awesome. Okay, now as I backtrack here, I am not going to increase the amount of time that I do these muscle rounds first. What I'm going to do is I'm going to try to beat how many times I get through these sets. So for instance, if you get through the first big movement pattern muscle round only 4 times, the next time you go back to it, you should try to get it 5 and then 6 until you feel like you've peaked out, and then you would increase your time, okay, but not until then. So only change one variable at a time and don't get too greedy. Again, I can't stress enough that execution and safety and contractile tissue, making tension within the muscles that you're working, is super important, because you're trying to expend as much energy as possible, and that does not directly correlate to what you put on the bar. This is a completely different style of training. The split, what I would do personally is no more than 2 days in a row. So what I am doing is I'm just going to do a day of training and a day off, a day of training and a day off. And I literally have 2 different days. I have like an anterior-ish day and a posterior-ish day. And again, they're more movement-based than anything. And I'm also throwing just some basic steady state cardio on my off days to make sure that my central nervous system is recovering and that my body is getting better and better and better with its aerobic capacity. Why am I doing this? How is this benefiting my hypertrophy? This is the last question that needs to be answered. If I'm able to recover better between sets, don't you think when I go back to a hypertrophy environment that I'm going, if I go back to my normal rest periods, I'm going to be able to contract harder, more intense, and potentially be stronger set to set? Absolutely. So this style of training is an awesome segue into whatever it may be, a strength style protocol you're going to do, more of a hypertrophy style protocol that you're going to do, or even more of a metabolic or lactic protocol that you're going to do. You should be way more efficient at it. Bear in mind that every time you go back to that old environment, that you probably won't be able to stay in it as long. So you're going to, say like you're used to being in your hypertrophy environment for 6 weeks, you're going to find that your body will adapt to it so much faster because you're becoming more and more efficient at contracting every time you go back into that training phase. So be very flexible with the training. But the incomplete rest method that I use here, number one, it has a ton of versatility. So this isn't the only way to do it. Number two, I love it because it puts me in another competitive environment where I'm having some different style of edge in my training besides the load on the bar and going to failure. Now I have the element of time, which is a lot of fun, and it's very challenging. And second, or in last, okay, is that it sets me up successfully for going back into the environment I was in, potentially stronger and better recovered, okay? And not only that, but the biggest bonus is that long term, it's actually helping you keep your youth by maintaining your cardiovascular system, by helping your aerobic capacity, by helping the mitochondria in your body, helping your liver to detox better, and most of all, helping that heart stay intact. So I hope this video was super helpful, guys. If you guys have anything that you want me to talk about training wise, that you have questions about, put it in the comments below and I'll talk to you soon.